the listeners a bit of a rundown on background astrology, how you got into it, and what we just touched on, being in a construction job or a pest controller.
Yeah, so for when I left school, I didn't have any direction. I was pretty academic at school up until about grade 11, and then I had some shit teachers, and me and my mates we were into surfing and stuff, so we fucked around a lot. So by the time I got to the end of grade 12, I didn't really aspire to go on and do anything. I didn't really have any sort of motivation to go and follow a particular pathway. My dad was a builder. My brother did his apprenticeship and he was a builder. Dad offered me that pathway, and I sort of went, I saw what my older brother had to go through, and I was like, nah, I don't really want to do that. I don't think it's for me. So I went and I worked just shitty jobs here and there. I worked at Wet and Wild. I worked as a labourer. I did all sorts of things. And then I went and worked at the Snow as a lift operator. And I loved that. The lifestyle and everything was good, but fuck, there was no money in it. And you'd get to Tuesday and you'd be baked beans because you didn't get paid until the Wednesday. Wednesday night would be pub night. So it's just this cycle. Like, it was a great lifestyle. I was young, but it was more just for the experience. But I remember about 3/4 of the way through the season saying to the old man, like, this is great. I love it, but fuck me, I need money. Like, just can't live like this. And at that point, my dad had transitioned from building to doing building inspections and started doing inspections for people buying homes. And this is like building and pest inspection stuff. And this was way back late 90s. It wasn't even a field or an industry that had even opened up yet. And my dad had sort of stumbled into it and started doing it. And he was subcontracting the pest side of the inspection to pest controllers. And that was basically doing termite checks on houses. And he said, look, I'm flat out doing this and I'm palming out so much work to these pest control guys. Why don't you come back and license up? And then you can do that instead of me giving the work to them. I'll give it to you. And I thought, yeah, all right. So he sent me down some pest control books down in the Snow, and I started studying. I got home, and back then it was, you went in on a Friday afternoon into the health department, which had an office in Southport on the Gold Coast. And you sat at a questionnaire with 20 questions. And then if you got it right, I think you had to get 19 out of 20 minimum. They gave you your pest control license. That was it, over the counter. You were a pestie. No qualifications for termites, no qualifications for like spraying, and can you do it properly or anything like that? And that was it. So I got my paperwork all sort of certified by like a legal firm. And then my dad, I think I was 19 maybe. I think it was 19 or maybe 20. I was only young. And I started earning money. Fuck me, I started earning a shitload of money. Some weeks I was earning 2-3 grand a week doing this, and it wasn't that hard of work. And so what do you do when you're young and you get that sort of money? You piss it up the wall. And I traded a few cars and then ended up with my dream car, which is a Holden Commodore Ute V8. Here I am. I think I was 20 with a black Holden Commodore SS V8 Ute. So it was fucking, in goes the stereo, gets lowered, bloody exhaust on it. And mate, that was me. So did that for a while. Obviously all of the laws and everything changed, and the licensing and everything started to establish qualifications and training and things like that through TAFE and stuff, and upskill and things. And that developed a little bit. And I got to about the age of 22, I reckon. And I was living at home, working with my parents, and I was a pest controller. So in my mind, I was thinking, like, what's next? And is this it? And am I going to do this for the rest of my life? And really, what sort of person out there is going to want to be with a pest controller? That's not very fucking romantic or, anything like that. I thought it was a bit of it's always been looked on, in my eyes anyway, it's always been looked on as an industry that's sort of like, I can crawling around killing termites and cockroaches and chasing rats and shit. So it's not very glamorous, to say the least. And around that time, I'm also a drummer, so I was playing in a few different bands, and a couple of my mates in one of the bands I was in had gone over and caught up with one of their mates in London, and then decided, fuck it, we're just going to move to London for a bit. And so that's what I did. I literally, it was November of 2001, before September 11, or just after September 11, actually. So we just had September 11, and it was November that year. And I just went, fuck, I think I'm going to do the same. So within 1 month, I'd sold everything. We'd hired a new person to take my job, subcontracting to my dad. And I fucking had my ticket and I was away. I think I had 10 grand in the bank, and I landed in London. I had a couple of mates, and, you know, I had already set up an apartment or a room in a building to live with them. And that was it. And I lived over there for 3 years. Straight over there, I was working as a pub, like in the pub. And this is a long story. Sorry.
No, it's good, mate.
So much detail, but anyway, yeah. So I was living in a pub, working over there, working in a pub, and you're earning fucking no money. So here I'm going from earning shitloads of money to earning nothing, like £4 an hour in a pub, which, like, it's all relative. So it's fucking not much money. I think it was about £250 a week or something, and I think my rent was 170. And so then I saw an ad for a pest controller over there. So I was like, fuck, that's what I know how to do. So I went and did that. And that was good. I got better money. I got a car and a phone, and I got just my own, like, you do what you want. And if you got all your jobs done, I could be home by fucking 2 o'clock in the afternoon and do whatever I want. And because I had the car too, it was handy. No one in London at that time had cars. Everyone was on the tube and shit. Anyway, I'll fast forward. Long story short, ended up back home after 3 years in London, back into the pest control game, and built up my own business. And for about 12, 15 years, gave it a really good crack. In that time, married, kids, house, mortgage, holidays, you know, you name it, all of that sort of stuff. And it got to a point within that life that I built for myself where I wasn't really happy, but I didn't know really why I wasn't happy. I was lacking. I had everything that you could want, you know, I'd had the success that I needed, and, you know, it's the lifestyle and the family and all those things, but I wasn't happy. And to mask my unhappiness, I'd drink. And it would be drinks after work on the way home, get a few for roadies on the way home, and then, you know, a couple more at home, and turned into like binge drinking on weekends. And that just spiraled, and I'd start doing stupid things and making a dick of myself and embarrassing myself, and, you know, doing and saying things when I was drunk, and then the next day not having any memory of it. And that sort of spiraled down towards the end of 2014, where I made a dick of myself at a friend's wedding, and the next day had no memory of it, and then was retold the story by my wife at the time, and which felt like about that big. So fuck, something's got to change. This isn't how I want to be. And, you know, so this alcohol is not helping me one bit. It's actually making it worse. So I decided 2015, cold turkey, no alcohol for the year. Had a year off alcohol. And right before that period of time, a friend had sent me a 9/11 conspiracy video. And up until that point, I hadn't gone down any rabbit holes. I'd come across a little bit of the noise about 9/11, but I was like, oh, whatever. And this video came at a time where it opened my eyes a little bit to the fact that, hang on a second, like it didn't happen the way they said it happened. Like, there's people question this. What's going on here? And that happened sort of early or just before my year off alcohol. So I spent my year off alcohol going down the rabbit hole. And what a lot of people were going through in 2020 with COVID, going down the rabbit holes with everything that was going on, I was doing that in 2015. And man, I couldn't get enough of it, because I was still working as a pest controller, and mostly I'd service houses, and I'd be doing, you know, 1 or 2 hour jobs, or I'd be doing big day jobs on one house if it was termite work. So I'd have my little you know, ear fucking piece from my phone in my ear, and I'd be listening to podcasts whilst I'm working, and just couldn't get enough. In between jobs, I'd be in the radio. Instead of the radio, I'd have the podcast going and listening to conspiracies, 9/11 and Sandy Hook and the moon landing and fucking everything. And I came across a guy talking about astrotheology, astrology and religion, and tying the two together, a guy named Santos Bonacci. And so it just was like, whoa, hang on a second, this is another thing, like curveball. What the hell is going on here? Like astrology? Because up until that point, I hadn't really looked into it too much. But obviously I was in that state. I was very clear of mind. I wasn't drinking, and I was very hungry for information. And I'd already at that point established that, fucking hang on, there's something going on in the world, and we're not told what's really going on. It's all fucking big scam. And I don't know the reason why, and I don't know who's behind it, but I know it's not, you can't fucking believe what we're being told. Just couldn't. So I started to look into astrology, and when I got beyond the horoscopes and the magazines and the newspapers and things like that, which are they're very generic, they're non-specific, they're easy to dismiss. I started getting into birth chart readings and analysis, and I started reading my own birth chart. And then I got a professional reading, and I was just like, hang on a second. You mean this is all just interpreted by the movement and the placement of the stars and the planets and all of that? How the fuck aren't I, like, why haven't I come across this? Why aren't we actually taught this? This is useful information. And the fact that the religions are telling the story of the movement of the stars in their mythology was like enough for me to go, if fucking religions are using this as a tool for mind control, essentially, to be the intermediary between man and God, religion comes in and says, oh no, you come to us to get to the source, whereas spirituality is like you've got direct connection to that. So I was a bit pissed because I was like, we should be showing this. So then I wanted to just spread the word of Jesus. In other words, I wanted to go around and tell everyone about astrology, and everyone's like, what the fuck? You're a weirdo. I'd end up having like hour-long conversations with clients about astrology after my pest control work, and then be like, oh fuck, I've got to go to another job. And it just vibed with me. It resonated. It spoke a language that made sense. And then I just said, okay, well, I am a pest controller, but I don't want to be doing that the rest of my life. And I don't, I think I want to go down this pathway and start looking into this. So I sought out a tutor, started getting tutored, started learning astrology. And also through that awakening period, I've worked out that I'd build a life for myself based on what I thought you're supposed to do, tick all the boxes, that conditioned lifestyle, the great Australian dream or the American dream or whatever it is, it's a white picket fence, and that's what's going to give you the happiness. You get all this stuff, you get all these things, and that's happiness. That's, hey, good, just go to work and pay your bills and be a good little, person, member of the community. And I was awakening to that and going, hang on, we're being conditioned into that. That's just someone's concept. We've been marketing, advertising, government, media, even through Hollywood and movies that they show us that's how we're supposed to live here. And I was like, hang on, you can actually fucking live it however you want. And up until that point, I don't think I'd ever really given much thought of like, what the fuck do I want? I thought I knew what I wanted, but it was really what I thought what you were supposed to have. And that's what was the problem with my life, is that I didn't want any of that. It's not really what I wanted. So fast forward from there, that sort of spiraled. I ended up selling my pest control business after I had a back injury, and my marriage ended up breaking down, relocated, sold up, moved to Melbourne. And when I got down to Melbourne, got a job as a pest controller because that's what I knew how to do. But I was already sort of pretty advanced in my astrological studies, and only stayed in that pest control job for 6 months. I had a bit of money behind me from selling up the house and stuff. And then I just dove into to astrology and started reading for people. And in 2018, 2019 was a big growth year. And I did a lot of readings, and I was doing a lot of workshops and stuff. And then 2020 hit, and it was just like take off, because everyone was locked down. So I had time on the hands, and they were like, what the hell's going on in the world? And they started to ask the same questions that I was asking about the world in 2015. And here I was online on a platform speaking out about what was going on, calling it out, because I was like, it's a scam. Like, come on, people, this isn't like, we're not being told the whole truth. This is a program, propaganda. And I was also tying that into astrological movements. So that grew my social media following, which then meant that I had an influx of clients, and 2020 was a massive growth year for me. 2016, I got trained and attuned into Reiki to do Reiki healing. So I was also doing that work. And then in 2020, I did Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis technique training, which is past life regression therapy and subconscious clearing therapy. So I'm also trained in that. And that leads me to where we are now, mate. I am no longer a tradie or a pestie. I'm a bit of a fringe fella at the moment. But yeah, I basically help people that are going through what I went through, which is called the awakening journey. And I help people reconnect back to their authentic or their true self, and align them to the bigger picture beyond just a house, a job, money, a relationship and go like, what are you doing here as a being, as a soul? Like, where have you come from? Have you been here before? Are you coming again? What's your mission? Are you fulfilling it? How in alignment to your soul's purpose are you? Do you even know what that is? And a lot of people that have gone through their awakening post, like through 2020 and beyond, are starting to like, how do I integrate this expanded awareness and this different way to see the world into my existing life? And it means that you have to confront a lot of the imbalance in your life. So if you're out of alignment with the job, you've got to confront that and do something about it. If it's a relationship, you've got to do that work and, either repair it, go to another level, or end the relationship. But if you've had your awakening journey and you're feeling stuck, you sort of look in which part of your life are you still having to play the old version of yourself. And what I like to do is go, well, I've been there. I went through all of that. I went through it on my own, and I went through it before COVID. And I also had astrology and Reiki and all these types of tools at my hand when I did, which I'm like, they're useful, they're helpful. They're not the thing. You don't get like, oh, astrology is the answer. It's not the answer. It helps you find the answer. The answers are within, and what astrology can do, and regression therapy and the energy healing is help you reconnect to that within you, so that you can then go, right, I'm on the right track. I'm not going crazy, and this is my best way forward, so to speak. So, mate, that's a big introduction.
Mate, it's good. No, you've absolutely nailed it. Again, I didn't need to say anything there, but one of the questions I've got for you is the regression therapy. Did you want to just talk a little bit about what that is?
Yep. So we've got different aspects of our consciousness. We've got alert state, we've got our beta state, which is like brainwave states. And then we've got our theta state, which is where we go to when we dream. And we've got delta, which is deep sleep. And what regression therapy does is take someone through an induction process out of their waking state into their theta state. And that's called an induction or a hypnosis, basically. It's not like this old style sort of stereotypical hypnosis. It's a process connecting people to their imagination and visions and symbols in their minds and stuff. And because when you access that aspect, that's the gateway to the subconscious mind, and that subconscious mind has access to all memories, past, present, and future. And past meaning early life or beyond. And in the work that I do, like prior to all of this, I was like, I was conditioned to think that when you die, worms eat your body. That's it. It's over. No more. But since I've had my spiritual awakening and my soul awakening, I'm like, oh no, we've been here before and we come again, and there is an afterlife, and that's probably more of the real eternal state than the actual physical life. It's just that when we're in the physical life, we think everything's real because we can touch, sense it, so see it. So yeah, the regression therapy takes a person back into that state, and I'm like a detective, and we go in looking for, an experience and awareness around particular things. Now, the client that's going through the regression, they are in charge of what experience they see, what past life they go to. And everyone is different. There is no two regressions are the same. Their subconscious is only going to show them a story or a past life that is important for them to see and somehow in their life at the moment, it's somehow connected. And then my job as the therapist is to be the detective, because they're in a state of, hypnosis, but I'm still conversing with an aspect of their consciousness, and I'm asking them, what do you see? Tell me about that. Can you move towards that? Can you open that door? What if we go through there? And just I'm doing a story for them, and then we record the session. So a lot of big, profound stuff can come up through regression therapy. Most people through a process of regression will have some type of experience or observation of a death that they've been through, which is really important for them to witness. I've done it a few times. I've been hung, I've been burnt, I've died of old age in a cave. I've died of a cataclysm wiping out things and me being taken away in it. So we've all had lots of different deaths, and the death experience is really important. There's a lot of teaching that can come through that. But I've regressed people where they've entered into their past life at the scene of their death. I've had one lady, she was like this on the table, and she was literally in her past life, she was being drowned in a barrel of water. I've had another woman regressed and she's being hung at the same time, burnt at the stake, buried alive up to their neck in sand, all sorts of horrific ways in which people have come to their end. There is a process in the therapy that they don't experience the pain of it. They can observe it as a witness. And it's a big healing process to take people through. So there's a lot of information about patterns of behavior that their soul has endured because of a certain experience that they've brought forward into this life, which operate as subconscious or unconscious dysfunctional patterns, you know, unconscious fears, dysfunctional self-sabotaging habits and things that people pick up. And you can trace a lot of that back to experiences that have been embodied and memorized. And when the soul moves out of that life and into this, the body and the physicality does stay there. But if there's an imprint on the soul because of an intense emotional experience, be it an acute experience where it's like a trauma, or be it a prolonged life experience of constant berating and belittling and demeaning by the person they've been in love with, that soul has that imprint in that. And when it embodies in this life, the physical body is where the soul lives, right? And the physical body can respond because of the soul memory. And that's why sometimes people have difficulty with certain embedded deep patterns and programs and behavioral difficulties. They can go to a therapist and they can go and get psychological care and they can do talk therapy until they're blue in the face. But the actual problems are stored in their physical body because that's where the soul resides. So in the past life regression therapy, we can go in and we can clear a lot of that just by going through the process and going, and unlocking the awareness. And then there's a beautiful part at the end of the regression where we take people into the conversation with the intelligence that is what's known as their higher self, or, you know, their deep subconscious intelligence. Dolores Cannon, she calls it they. Like it's they. And the weird thing is it's the person on the table that's being regressed talking to you, but it's not the consciousness of the person that you know in the waking state. And what happens when you take them into this part is that their voice shifts and changes, and the tone changes, the pitch changes, the volume changes. They lose emotional, it's almost borderline, autistic people, how they don't have an emotional connection. They can be very emotionally sort of detached. It's almost like that emotional detachment that happens. And then you're conversing with their subconscious, and you can ask direct questions about them and their life and their problems to that aspect of themselves, and they will respond from their higher self, and they'll talk about themselves in the third person. And it's a fucking amazing process. And I can sometimes sit there for an hour having a conversation with their subconscious, asking specific questions based on what the client wants to work on, but as well as me adding to that to try and get as much good information as possible. The subconscious can also scan the body, tell the person, or tell me through them, where there is imbalances, where there's difficulties, disease and illnesses, how to overcome it, what they need to do, what they need to stop doing, what they need to do more of, all those types of things, which are phenomenal. And then we take the person back out of that process and bring them back to waking state, and they feel like they've had a nap. The interesting thing we get them to do at the end is like say, well, how long do you reckon that was? And most people say, oh, it was about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Usually it's like an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. It's been under. So it's mind blowing for them. And then it's recorded. So then I give them the recording, and we'll do a little bit of a breakdown of what came through. And yeah, usually people go on to like either make some big changes in their life, or they've cleared a lot of things that they're holding on to. They no longer have the fear associated to breaking a pattern. Because often people have these subconscious or difficult patterns that they can't stop doing, and there's some fear associated with it that prevents them from breaking the pattern, because the pattern developed through a survival mechanism. So, if they've got to break that pattern, it can feel like they've got to die because they used it to survive. So often we can clear that fear, and then next thing they can actually just say, actually, you know what, I'm going to stop drinking, or I don't need to smoke anymore, or I'm going to leave my abusive partner, right? Because they've just overcome the blockage that stops them from changing the behavior. So it's amazing work. It's pretty intense. So a regression can be like a whole session can be up to about 4 hours long. And usually between an hour and a half to 2 hours, they're in that sort of hypnotic state. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Mate, I'm glad I asked that question as well, because again, my audience that obviously follows me are 16 to 24-year-old men who are in construction. So they're going to listen to that and be quite new to the concept. But I think it's important to go into that stuff, because even myself, like, I'm not even aware of that therapy. I've done connective, I think it's connective breathing. I don't know if you know him. His name's Lucas Mack. You know him?
I've heard of that name. Yeah.
So they've got a thing called Awakened Breathwork, and basically it's an hour seminar where you do connective breathing in through the mouth, out through the mouth, and you access your subconscious through that. It was quite a transformative experience. I'm actually heading to LA in a couple of weeks' time to do it again. So I'm glad that I asked you about that therapy, because I think it's important for, the young men out there who may be curious around this stuff, because at the end of the day, it can really transform your life. And I think that, there you go.
No, I was just going to say, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think one thing is, you touched on it before, you can go to a psychologist and speak to someone, but the body remembers at the end of the day. And I think I'm glad that you highlighted that, because it's something that even myself, I've struggled with, but I know it's there. And I think that's for a listener that's listening. If you do have that feeling in your body, then maybe it is time to actually step up and either reach out to you or do a bit of chat GPT, reaching out on there, or Google or anything like that, because yeah, the help is out there. So once you clear those blockages with the people and they come out of the subconscious state, where to from there? Like, obviously, do you give them tasks to do, or?
That's a good question. There's a lot of integration that has to happen. And with any form of spiritual work, self-development work, there is the process that you go through. Let's say it's a regression, or it's breath work, or if people want to go and do plant medicines, or whatever it is, right? There is the process you go through. And then there's the integration phase, which is what comes afterwards. And that is, how do I take the awareness, the shift, the clearing, the whatever has come through for me in the process, how do I take that into my life and integrate? And that's where a lot of people get challenged, because sometimes what comes through is, oh, well, I have to leave my job. Like, I can't, it's killing me. I'm not aligned. I'm doing it for money. I'm selling my soul. It's actually making me ill. And then it's like, but how do I do that? So the ongoing support is that I offer consultation, whether it's astrology sessions, because with an astrology session, it's a counseling session, we're talking, but I'm using their chart to help guide them. So those types of things to say, right, these are the pathways to go, and these are the things to focus on. But the integration process, I normally say to people, is like, for the first week, don't do anything. Don't go and try and make big changes, or I have had one woman come out of a regression, went home and ended her relationship immediately. That's a long story for another day, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. What I'd recommend is you integrate this shift in your awareness. So you get because for us to make changes, we've got to know what changes we're going to make in our life. So there has to be some shift in our awareness. We have to see something differently. Our perception needs to change, and sit with that new perspective, or that shift in your awareness, and just sit with it for a week or so. See what comes up, have that reflective process, the good old, chat to the inner self. And then from there, usually people have an idea of what they need to do. But I always say, look, I'm in contact with my regression clients afterwards to sort of go, how you going? Whatever, because sometimes, strange things can happen in their life when they shift a lot of subconscious stuff. They can have weird dreams and all sorts of weird things happen in their life as a result, or synchronized to that experience. And then from there, it's about saying, okay, well, what is the thing? What's the main thing? Because even though we're dealing on a spiritual level and a soul level and a subconscious level, we're living a life as well. And we've got, certain demands in that life, responsibilities, obligations. We've got our survival needs to meet. How do we put food on the table and, roof over our head? So, you know, it's all good and well certain times saying like this has got to happen and change, but all of a sudden it might impact their things they need for security. So it's like, okay, well, what's the best process here? And usually astrology is where that nicely fits in to support people, because they can come back and have an open conversation in their waking state, and I can be saying, well, this is the regression information, this is the things, and then let's have a look where your chart is and what the energy is saying, and you know what cycles you're at, and how best to sort of guide you through this because of these astrological cycles. And I'll just add that astrology isn't causing anything, it's more of a correlation. So what's happening above us is happening down here on the earth. This is like a cosmic clock. So if we look at the clock on the wall, the clock isn't time, it tells us the time. So when we look at a chart, it's not the person causing it, it's just helping us understand, oh, these are the things that energetically, you know, coming up for you, or the shifting, or these are the sort of cycles you're going through. And if we use that information, because that's the cosmic clock, right? It's the divine clock. That's the energetic blueprint of the soul. That's just what it is. It shows you, okay, you've come here at that moment. That's what the clock said. So here is your sort of pathway if we align to those energies. So that can be a useful tool for integration and the continual support. And that's probably a big part of my work, is probably 60-70% of the work I do is astrology, counseling, guidance, support, those types of things. So, but integrating is important. A lot of people go off and they do big spiritual things to shift things, and then they don't integrate. So then what they can do is they can go back to want to seek that experience again, because they think that that's the work, is by doing the breath work. The breath work's good. It can shift things, and it, you know, and I'm just using that as an example, but it's what you do in the waking life. It's in the physical body. It's in the here and the now with the 5 senses and how you engage. And when you do have some profound shift, how do you then apply that to your lived experience to make the changes? Because we are creator beings, and we are creating, whether we're creating consciously or unconsciously, that's the point. And usually when you're doing spiritual work or subconscious work and breath work and things like that, you start to become consciously aware of where you've become out of alignment. So then you have to take back into your lived experience, and you have to consciously recreate your life. You recreate your self-image, you recreate this experience, the circumstances, the way you respond to your life. So that's the work. It's not meditation, plant medicine, breath work. It's in your lived experience. How do you transmute that into change in your life? And change is the reason that we're here. We're here to grow and to change and to evolve. It's cycles of nature. It never stops changing. So it's whether we're consciously taking part in that or not.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you bring up the nature sides of things, because that was something I've noticed the last couple of months. When it rains, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but when it rains and it's cold and it's wet, you usually feel a little bit miserable, maybe not the right word. But then when it's sunny, hot, obviously up here on the Gold Coast, everyone's up and about, running, having coffee. Do you agree with that?
100%, mate. There's a thing called seasonal depression in cities that, you know, have extreme winters. I'm pretty sure Melbourne has seasonal depression. I know for a fact that London has, because I lived there for 3 years. But we're tuned into, we're part of the natural world, whether we're legit part of it and we evolved from it or not, or whether we were seeded here or not. We're definitely a part of it. And the more clear you become, the more aligned into the cycles of nature that you tune into. But we're so, dependent upon the season, the cycles, the weather. It affects us immensely. And it does so subtly and unconsciously. People take it for granted. But in fact, I think, I do these meditations down here on the beach. And when I come down some mornings, if I'm clear, I can sense that the intelligence of the wildlife and the plants and that. And all they're doing is being present, waiting for this light of the sun to come in. And you sit amongst it and you feel them all just in anticipation of that moment the sun crests over. It's a strange feeling. And you're just sort of being there, and that's like, we are in our mind and we're thinking, we're looking, and the plants are just like total awareness, ready to receive that vibrational frequency that comes through light, right? And yeah, we are so heavily affected, but also connected to nature, the cycles of nature. And I think the key to living here more consciously and also evolving the collective consciousness, in other words, the state of the world and the world we live in and the problems of the world, the process to do that is to reconnect to nature. And we primarily do that through our physical body. We reconnect to our body because our body is our nature, right? It's our home in this life. We have a physical body. And then by extension, our other home is the earth, because that's the body that we are, residing upon. So when we reconnect to our earth, we then reconnect to her, Mother Earth, and then we are reconnected. Now, if we individually do that, our world starts to dramatically transform. And as we collectively do that, this earth starts to transform. And that's a lot of what's happening now, post 2001, when the Twin Towers came down. It's this process of great transformation. I really feel that we're in the turning point of an age, going out of one age and into a new age. And energetically, astrologically, consciously, you name it. And in order to withstand that transformation and the frequency shift, we've got to come back home. We've got to come back home. We've got to be in the body. We've got to be on the earth. So not sure how we got there, but anyway.
No, mate, it's good. It's good. I'm glad that I love the podcasts that are just, you just chat shit and talk. I think that's the best part about them.
Yep.
There's something I was going to touch on, the nature side of things. So if you're someone listening to this, obviously, again, you're quite curious. What would you recommend for people to do when it comes to the nature side of it? Because you say come back to yourself. Now, as I said before, 16, 24-year-old young man works on a construction site. Meditation isn't necessarily the thing that everyone does. It's more of a 4 and 20 and a V. But for the person who is listening to this, what would you recommend or where to start?
Yeah, it's a good question for that age group, because you got a lot of, you got a lot going on at that age, even though there's, in context to life, it's like you think it's everything, but it's not that much at all. So I guess pausing would be the first place, is taking a moment every single day to pause, to not look at the phone, to not distract yourself, to just try and be as present as you can. And the best way to do that is through nature itself. So outside, feet on the earth, and watching a sunrise, or standing near a tree, or looking at a nice scenery, or watching some wildlife, or smelling a fucking rose, or whatever it is, but being in nature and pausing for as little as a minute, 3 minutes maximum to begin with, but making that consistent thing that you just have that connection. Because we're spending so much of our time and our attention and awareness is just gone. We're outside of self all the time. We're thinking about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. We're looking at the phone, we're scrolling, our attention's going there. It's going to the road, it's going to the job, it's going to the boss, it's going to the bank account, it's going to the missus, it's going everywhere except here. Mm-hmm. So pausing, coming back for like 1 to 3 minutes every day. If you were smart, you would do it at the same time every day, and you'd do it consistently. And the best time is the morning. And the reason for that is because when you get up in the morning, the first thing you do is go and connect, on the earth, connect, present, right. All right. What you'll do by doing that consistently is start to build this practice or habit of starting to really check in with the self. Right, we're good. How am I feeling today? Shit, what have I got on? Yeah, okay, I'm good. I'm here. I'm aligned. And by doing it in the morning, that practice, when you get to the end of the day, you've got the distractions of the entire day to keep you from remembering to actually, oh, fuck, I've got to go connect. So if you wake up and make it a habit to do it first thing, maybe mean you have to get up a little bit earlier. Maybe sometimes it's dark when you do, but so be it, right? Getting back into that presence, just being, pausing is the key. That stopping and that stillness. Because, man, there's a huge world going on, but we're distracted from it. and we're caught up in all of the trappings of the material world. So if we can come back for a moment and just give ourselves that 1 to 3 minutes as a starting practice. Maybe you do it with a coffee or a cup of tea. Maybe if you want to then expand on that, you might do, stand on the grass and do some nice 30 seconds of circular breathing, right? And then you might do a little affirmation just for the day about fucking being in body or presence or courage or whatever it is. And then you might just sort of give a bit of gratitude and go, do you know what? Thank you that I'm fucking earthbound again. I woke up in my body. I'm still here. I'm breathing, right? And then all of a sudden you expand that practice, do it consistently. The next thing, it becomes a habit. And you're going to be able to mean that you're still going to be able to, have your life and do your work and piss up when you want and all those types of things, but you're consistently doing that practice. And what will happen over time, if done as a habit and consistently, is it becomes like food. It's something you just can't do without. You just have to do it, So that would be a starting place. Keep it really simple. Don't try to, people will never meditated or done any breath work, and then all of a sudden they want to sit out and do half an hour meditation, and they get the shits and irritated because they can't. They're impatient. It's like, just start really small, 1 to 3 minutes. Just give yourself time to stop. Depending on where they are in the world, I'm fortunate I live on the Gold Coast, and, we have the most spectacular sunrises over the beach pretty much most days, even when it's overcast. There's always something that you can stop and take in and just go, wow, how good's that? And that's important.
No, 100%. And I'm glad you said pause, because I think I like that word. It's better than sort of be present, or, there's another one that comes to mind that I can't even fucking think of at the moment, but we'll scrap it there. But no, mate, again, I really appreciate you coming on board. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that was on your heart, on your mind, on your soul, if they're all connected?
Yeah, look, don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Don't burden yourself with the problems that aren't yours, and don't amplify the problems you've got like they're the end of the world. You can change any situation, even if you've made a commitment and now things have changed and you no longer want to withhold or upstand that commitment. You can change. You don't have to stay stuck in your misery. You don't have to stay stuck in overthinking or anxiety or depression. You can make the change. If you are feeling burdened, pressured, or overwhelmed, and you feel like you don't know what to do or you haven't got any help, then reach out. One thing that I did when I was going through my sort of awakening journey was I internalized everything that I was going through. I didn't really reach out to people. I didn't feel like I could. It was at a time in life and world that it wasn't a common thing for people to go through this type of thing. I think COVID has made it more common for a lot of people to go through, like, yeah, what the hell's doing in this world, and who am I, and what am I doing here, and is this really all that there is? So reach out, even if it's to a mate or a friend, or if it's to someone completely random like myself on the internet. But if you are getting to the point and you feel like you have no hope, or there's nowhere to go, or you don't know what to do, there is so much support. And there are so many people ahead of you on the journey that have been where you're at. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not a failure. You're not weak. You're not useless. You're not worthless. You're a creator being that has a divine spark within you, and you are important because you're here, and you need to continue to remain here. But if you're ever feeling like it's too much and what's the point, then you're not crazy, and that's not bad to think that. Many people, including myself, have been exactly that place. But just say, hey, look, I'm not coping. I'm not coping. Sometimes, they say a problem shared is a problem halved. And sometimes it's just about talking to someone about what's going on. If you find that people close to you can't reach out to, then go beyond that and go to someone completely random, unrelated, not emotionally connected whatsoever, because they're going to be open and give you clarity and not going to judge you or have any bias. And they're probably going to be able to listen better than those close to you, because those close to you will come with prejudice and bias, not because they mean to, but just because they can't help it. They know you and they've connected to you. So if you're fearing judgment or anything like that, just go beyond your social circle and your, you know, your friends and your family, and seek some sort of person. Mentors are important for young men. We don't have an initiation rite from adolescent to adulthood in Western culture for young men. So mentors are important. So other men that you can look up to, you know, ones that you can aspire to sort of mold your personality and characteristics off, is really important as well. So seek out good mentors, and question the ones you have at the moment in your life, whether they're supportive and they're going to be in alignment to what's going on for you and what you want, or whether they're not. But yeah, that's
mate. Again, glad I asked you that question, because yeah, the mentor sides of things is massive for construction workers or apprentices as well, because as you know, obviously being back in when you're in the industry, it's quite toxic when it comes to some of those sites. But mate, again, really appreciate you coming on board. Where can everyone catch you? Just on Instagram?
Yeah, so I spend most of my time on my social media sites, or is on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel and I have a website. It's all under my one name, which is Luke Belk. So you can type in that on Instagram or on Google or on YouTube or anything like that, Facebook, and you'll find all my stuff. It's pretty easy to find. I'm the only Luke Belk in the world.
There you go, mate. That's good.
Yeah.
Again, brother, thanks for coming on board. And yeah, hopefully the listeners got a bit out of it.
Excellent, mate. Thanks for having me.